Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 8th February 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing this couple of issues. This article is about Lingayats quota demand in the state of Karnataka. Let me give a brief background about the demand and also about Lingayats. Recently, in 2018 itself, there was a bid to make Lingayats a separate religion itself. The then Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Siddaramaiah, has recommended that Lingayats be treated as a minority in our country. Now, minorities have certain special rights. They get special benefits with respect to educational institutions. They get special benefits with respect to the kind of rights they have to profess, practice their religion, and also administer institutions as per their own terms. They also get certain additional monetary benefits from the central government as well. In North Karnataka, a lot of institutions are run by Lingayats, and these Lingayats are basically followers of 12th century philosopher Basavanna. Now, there is another debate surrounding this. There are a set of people who are called Veerashaivas. Veerashaivas are considered today as a subsect of Hinduism, and presently they are treated as a part of Hinduism itself. There is a debate as to how Lingayats should be categorized because Lingayats are clubbed together with Veerashaivas. There is a segment of population which disassociates themselves with Veerashaivas because of the ritualistic practices that they continue in terms with Hinduism. And if you take the philosophy of Basavanna, it is completely different from that of the Veerashaiva followers. Lingayats, basically who followed Basavanna, have rejected the caste system, they rejected the Vedas, and they follow a different style of worship. So this debate has its origin in the cultural aspects of that Karnataka society. Now today they form a very significant aspect of Karnataka's population, nearly 17% of the population, and the demand to include them in OBCs has been there for a very long time right now. Especially in this Lingayats, there is another subset called Panchamasali Lingayat, which basically comprises of 70%. Most of them are from agricultural community, and they form a significant vote bank. There are many eminent personalities from the state in all walks of life, whether it is in the politics. As many as 38 Lingayat MLAs from the ruling party BJP are from this particular community. So this means that the state government cannot afford to ignore the demands of this community. So the Chief Minister of Karnataka, Yediyurappa, has said that it will take certain decisions to recommend Lingayats to the National Commission on Backward Classes to include them in the central list of OBCs, and also there is a particular categorization within the state itself to change it from a lower category where the reservation is just 5%, it is called category 3, and include them in category 2, which has 15% reservation. So this is the entire story behind this quota demand. This article, India-EU Trade Pact may still remain elusive, is about the relationship between India and EU. So this is in the context of the post-Brexit world order of EU and how we can renegotiate the partnership that we want to envisage with European Union. Till recently, there was a India and European Union annual summit which was held, but in 2017 it was put off because of the disagreements over trade and investment that define our bilateral ties with European Union. But again, it was revived last year in 2020 after Brexit because we thought it is a renewed opportunity to renegotiate terms with European Union. So on this front, We have held a virtual summit during which we created a roadmap to 2025, which is considered to be a common roadmap to guide our action for the next few years with respect to our strategic partnership with EU. If you take a look at the commonalities between India and European Union, both of the states or entities are considered to be unions of diversity where certain values are shared, and those values which are common for both EU and India are democracy, rule of law and human rights. Both are equally convinced of the necessity to preserve the rules based world order and effective multilateralism. Our common interests include multilateralism and the need to preserve that, security of the countries that are in the union, the need for sustainable development. European Union, for example, has moved towards achieving the target of carbon neutrality. Even India, despite being one of the lowest per capita emitters of carbon emissions, is very ambitious about pursuing its goals with respect to renewable energy. So all these factors show us that there are certain commonalities and we can arrive at a solid trade pact using these commonalities. So with respect to this trade, what happened was India and EU had launched talks for a wide-ranging free trade agreement long back in 2007 itself. But unfortunately, there were certain terms which did not take off, and this is very important for our prelims exam as well. It was already asked in the exam once. The India EU Free Trade Agreement is called Bilateral Trade and Investment Agreement, BTIA. So this is only with respect to European Union. Please remember this point for preliminary examination. So this BTIA was proposed to encompass not only goods but also services and investments. However, in 2013, there was a difference on market access and movement of professionals. India wanted more and more number of software professionals to be having easy access to the European Union, which European Union did not agree. India is one of the largest partner of EU, and if you take a look at the country-wise allocation, USA is definitely the largest trading partner, but for India, uh, EU is collectively a very huge market. So therefore, we have to move towards this and make it work. What are the challenges that EU is facing presently? Like every other nation in this world, even the European Union is still grappling from the clutches of the COVID-19 pandemic. The second one is Britain has exited European Union and this is called Brexit. So there is a need for renegotiating terms with various countries. And this has become a point of contention given the fact that Britain is a significant player in the European Union. The next one is Trump's protectionist policies have had a varying effect on a lot of European nations and it has created internal squabbles. So this internal squabbles have a rippling effect. So the Trump's policy and its after effects are still felt. It questioned the integrity of the systems and the internal contradictions within the European Union. Fourth one is with respect to rule of law. European Commission is supposed to follow a standardized protocol, but different countries, owing to their allegiance with different ideological and personal benefits, they have taken different stances on the issue with respect to China or with respect to international issues like Turkey, and this has again showed the lack of consistency in policy with respect to rule of law. So this is yet another problem. The next one is different economies within the European Union are at different stages. So certain countries really wanted a COVID recovery plan and injection of money into the economy, and several other countries were completely opposed to this. So this showed that despite having certain commonalities, there are a lot of diverging factors which demands that all these internal squabbles should be addressed by the European Commission And whenever they are trying to negotiate a deal, all this will also be factored in by the other party as well, in this case India. So we will also be negotiating every aspect of this internal differences. So it would not be in the best of outcomes if these problems are not addressed prima facie. Even in the past, EU has expressed its concern with respect to India's protectionist measures on tariffs, on opening up India's services sector for European companies, and the termination of bilateral investment treaties with 25 European Union countries. So, EU also views the recent Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan as an initiative which might lead to protectionism. Also, on various instances, EU has been very critical about the removal of Article 370, and at the same time, it has also criticized the Citizenship Amendment Act, which, according to India, is an internal matter. So, there is a need for a comprehensive trade agreement, but issues which are not really directly relevant to trade are also impacting the relations. So, addressing this mutual trust deficit, facilitating people's mobility and connectivity can improve mutual understanding, and it will also create opportunities for innovation and growth. So, this is the bottom line that we have to understand. Enhanced business cooperation between European Union and India can diversify the strategic value chains also. We have seen with the recent COVID pandemic how the entire world was dependent on China, which is a very important piece in the supply chain link. So, if this enhanced business cooperation between various countries can actually strategically diversify the value chains and reduce this economic dependency on China, we are indirectly contributing towards a rules based world order. So, that is where we should work together and understand the larger picture. But we can also treat the pandemic as an opportunity because we have seen how EU has been fast tracking its procurement, and the vaccines have been one of the most important diplomatic tool. Yesterday, our external affairs minister has commented that India is now a pharmacy of the world. We can use the soft power diplomacy and engage in various conversations and relationships somewhere down the line in the future as well. That is the gist of this article.